Welcome to the Grampians Wine Podcast. I'm your host, Neil Butler. In each episode of the podcast, we speak to a representative of the Grampians winemakers or one of the wineries in the region. We'll learn about the wines, the wineries, and of course, the personalities associated with one of Victoria's leading wine regions. On today's episode, we speak to Ben Thompson from Best's Winery, located in Great Western. Hello, Ben.
How are you, Neil? How are you today?
Doing very well, thank you. It is in Great Western, isn't it? I've got that bit right.
Yeah, we're definitely in Great Western, not far from the Grampians. So
excellent. So tell us a bit about your winery, where specifically in Great Western, and the varieties that you produce.
Our winery is based in Great Western, which is basically 2.5 hours from Melbourne up the Western Highway towards Adelaide. We're sort of 30-minute drive from Halls Gap. I think we actually live in a beautiful part of the world. We have nice rolling hills, some mountains all around us, big timber. A bit further south, it flattens out and all that. Our winery's been established since 1866. I'm fifth generation here at this winery at Best's. So my great grandfather shifted here, and we bought Best's, and I've been here ever since. So I'm fifth generation here. We're basically known for Shiraz. But we also do Riesling, Pinot, Chardonnay. We do Pinot Meunier, Pinot Noir. What else do we do? A couple of different Rieslings. We do a straight Riesling, a Foudre Ferment, which is quite an interesting wine. It's a Riesling that's fermented on skins in a Foudre barrel. So that's interesting. But I think the beauty of what we've got here is we've got a lot of history. And we have a lot of wine that goes back in history. And it's interesting because there's not a lot of wineries in Australia that can go down to their cellar and say, well, here's a 55-year-old bottle of wine that we produced off this same vineyard, 55 years ago. And I think it's a testament to not just us, but to the Grampians region, that the wines that we produce around this area, not just us, but everyone, really hold their time and look good in many years later.
And what's your annual production? How much do you pour out each year?
We're doing about 20,000 cases, roughly 25,000 cases. We're hoping that will grow in the future. We've made a significant purchase of another vineyard, and the reason we've done that is mainly all for security for the future. I'm not going to get into the climate change argument, whether there is or there isn't. Everyone's got their own point of view, but it has been drier lately. We're getting more frost. So the more frost we get, the less production we get at our other vineyard. So we purchased another vineyard, and it's higher up in the hills, so we don't get as much frost. It's got good water security. So it's basically a security thing for the future and the next, if we have more generations come along. It's basically about that.
So I mean, now we're going to ask each of the people that we speak to this question, but I'd like your insight. What is it about the Grampians wine region that makes it good for growing grapes and for making wine?
Us, the people.
Of course.
What a stupid, silly question. No, it's. I think that our region makes more approachable wines. I'm not having a go at any other region or anything like that. But our style of wine seem to be a bit lighter. When I say lighter, not so much lighter, they're still the same sort of alcohol volume and all that, but they just seem to be more food-friendly wines. Dad's always said, we want to make wines to drink, not to talk about. You can talk about wine all day, but we actually want to sit back, have your glass of wine and actually just enjoy it. And I think that's the big thing. And I think it's all about your climate and your soil and all this. You can do a lot of things to wines to trick it up and all this sort of stuff. But we find the best thing is let the juice, when you get it in, do its own thing, because all the hard work, all the flavours and that come from the ground, the growing conditions and all that. And I think the big thing, what we try and do, we don't try and make wine exactly the same every year. So every season will reflect everyone will reflect how the season's actually been. If it's been a hot season or a dry season, normally you would get black pepper flavours, but in 2011 we had a very wet season. So all our wines have white pepper characteristics. So we didn't try and change, we just left it the same. And I think that's generally in the region, that's what we try and do is reflect our seasons and all that. So.
And obviously, various wines across the region can be purchased outside of the region. But why should people come to the Grampians wine region? What's the appeal of coming up and visiting?
It's for us, like there's ourselves, Bests and Seppels were two of the oldest Victorian wineries, Victorian wines, and some of the oldest wineries in Australia. There's a lot of history. There's a lot to see. Our winery itself is not all flashy and new. We have our cellar door is an old horse stable, which is 150 odd years old, which we shifted, and it still looks like 150-year-old stable. We have the Grampians just out the road, which is a beautiful bushwalking, camping area. I think the region's got a lot to offer. It's just getting people here. I think the hard thing for us is we're a small wine region. We're not a Yarra Valley where there's 50 odd wines, or Barossa where there's 100, and Yarra and that. McLaren Vale and places like that. We're quite a small wine region, but I think when people come here, they come here for the first time, and I think they're quite impressed by what the wineries can do and what they can turn out. So
let's project 5 years forward.
Yep.
Where do you see Best's Winery at that point?
Still family owned,
mm-hmm.
I hope. So something weird happens. I'm hoping we will have grown a bit. I also believe that our wines, hopefully, as we get smarter and all that, our wines will get better. I think we'll probably produce a few more different ranges of wine, mainly probably another Shiraz or two, just for security for the future, but have them try and make them all a bit different off different parcels of soil from different areas of our vineyards. I think we'll still be honest, and I think we'll still be integrity and all that sort of stuff. And that's the most important thing to me, is honesty, integrity, and all that sort of stuff. So.
Yeah. Well, at this point of the conversation, we always now try and personalise a bit and find out a bit more about Ben, not just about Best Wines.
Yeah.
So how long have you lived and worked in the Grampians wine region?
I was born in 64, so I've been here since 64. So what's that?
50 odd. Let's just run with 50 odd. I think it's probably the maths is to it.
Closer to 60 than 50.
Because I guess when we speak to people who have moved in, it's a different question. But when you've been there all your life, what was your first role in the winery?
Well, it's hard to say that, because I grew up in the house just at the back of the winery.
Mm.
So I think most of our work would have been, actually, now that I think back, probably labelling flagons, 2 litre flagons and 5 litre flagons out of the barrel. We were about 4 or 5, and then after that, during vintage, shoveling stalks and mark from the old presses and all that sort of stuff. So we've always been involved, and it's something people ask all the time, and you don't think about it because you've done it so long, you sort of becomes blasé, but other people find it fascinating. But when it's like any job, you do it all the time. You don't think about it until someone actually asks you.
And I suppose every employee, you've done their job somewhere along the way.
I would say that, yes. They may not agree with me.
Well, this question's a little bit about which is your favourite kid. But suppose you're going on a road trip and you can only take one case of wine from Best's with you. What do you take with you?
I would take Pinot Meunier. It's a very sentimental wine to me. It's we make a straight Pinot Meunier, and it was one of Dad's first wines that he ever made. So to me, it's very special. And I actually have the advantage to drink 30 and 40-year-old Pinot Meuniers, which not many people get the chance to do. So I've got a bit of a head start on old Meuniers, or what people say. I would take old Meuniers with me for sure.
And the favourite meal to have while you're having a bottle?
Like a Japanese light style, or a very light meat style with it. It's quite a light wine, but it's beautiful. So
what's your favourite location to have that meal and that drink?
Well, since we bought our other vineyard, it's got a great big hill up on top, and there's an old red gum log that we go up there and we sit on top of the log, and we have a glass of wine up there and watch the sunset over the Grampians. So that's probably, at the moment, it's probably one of my favourite spots.
and you're sitting having that glass of wine and that meal on that log, what's the music that's playing in the background to have with that meal and the drink?
I like a bit of old Tom Petty. A bit of his stuff
with or
there.
without the Heartbreakers? That's the question.
Well, yeah, the Heartbreakers aren't too bad. But Tom Petty, I like. My brother's a bit of a bandy man sort of thing, so we like to develop that older sort of style, and still got his actual round disc, the big old LPs and all that stuff.
That's the only way to listen to Tom Petty. And 3 people, living or dead, that you'd want to share that meal and wine with.
Well, number 1 would have to be my wife, Nicole. And to be honest, any of my good mates would be the other 2 for sure, because friendships are pretty important to me. And that's I'd hate to single out one, and the other one might get a bit cranky or something like that. So,
they might be watching this at some point.
Yeah, they might be too. Yeah, a wicked or something like that. So
that's it. And before we finish, can you tell us again where your location is, specifically where people can find you, cellar door hours, website, and social media?
We're based at 111 Bests Road, Great Western, 2.5 hours roughly from the centre of Melbourne up the Western Highway towards Adelaide. Our cellar doors open from 10 till 5 weekdays, 10 till 5 on Saturdays, and 11 till 4 on Sundays. And our website is just, if you type in Best's Wines, it'll come up straight away.
No problems. Well, Ben Thompson, thanks for joining us on the Grampians Wine Podcast today.
Cool. Thanks very much.
This has been another episode of the Grampians Wine Podcast featuring Ben Thompson from Best's Winery. You can subscribe to the podcast by visiting www.grampianswinepodcast.com.au. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe, but it will give you the chance to listen to previous episodes and to be reminded whenever we publish another episode. You can watch video versions of the podcast by subscribing to the Grampians Wine YouTube channel. We'll be back soon with another episode. My name is Neil Butler. I look forward to your company then. Cheers.